Good morning. I don't know how well I'm coming through, but good morning. This is In Touch News Radio, reality news where everyone can be a star. This is the Professor, so you're going to have a different show for you, or we have a different show for you this morning. So Clint's out, but you have me in here, and you have Julius Adams in here. Julius, good morning. Thanks for coming. It's been a while, so tell the audience, what you've been doing.
Yeah, I'm a local attorney in town, founder of Adams Law and Consulting. We do real estate law, family law, business law. Been around for a little while, and we're here to help the people.
Good. Well, our show this morning is going to be pretty interesting. We're riding from the middle lane to the right, so none of that liberal, we love the world, none of that stuff that Clint normally talks about, and Clint can put a positive spin on anything. So let me try to give you a lineup. We're going to be talking everything Trump, his court case, presidential standings, and then we're going to roll into President Biden because, President Biden has some things he needs to really straighten out with the polls and what's going on in the world, period. Talk about the economy, and then we're going to touch on what I think is, a very serious thing. I think most will agree, and that's going to be the Hamas Israel situation. So
Fun.
Yeah. So the call-in number, 813-444-9588. And hopefully you'll get on and give us a call because I definitely want to make sure we have a good conversation, especially going into and I'm really interested in hearing what people have to say about the Israel-Hamas and where we align with those things. So President Trump, and for those who don't know, I'm a recovering Republican. I am a registered independent. I'm on record a registered independent. And yes, I was one of the ones that went away from the party right after the elections as soon as I could do it. I'm trying to get them to stop sending me money for funding, stop texting me to get these $2, all these Republican candidates because they have to earn my vote. I'm not necessarily a MAGA voter. I'm not in that camp. I'm sure people would put me in that camp, but I'm not really that. And if I'm honest, I really like DeSantis over Trump. But Trump is he is the champ. He is the man to beat. So before we get to the presidential part of it, when I see President Trump now, he looks tired. So what the Democrats had planned to do really from day one, lassoing him and beating him down all these court cases, I think is showing up in major ways. Not only in his countenance, not only just in how he portrays, he likes to have that upbeat, that corny dance and everything he does, but when you look at him, he's stressed. And this is a billionaire.
He's got to be stressed.
This is a billionaire. And they're beating him down in his wallet. And what I didn't think would have the effect that it's having is the court case about his brand, which is calling into question, everything that he did leading up to this point. And my mom, I'll just throw this out for her. This is when he was president, and they were trying to get his taxes, and my mom would go, I didn't think he's worth $3 billion. It's like, $1 billion is a lot of money for the average Joe, more money than we can ever imagine. But yeah. So what do you think about the court case? And because I think he's due to testify this week coming, right?
Right. Yeah. Well, he's got he's got several things going on.
Yeah.
The one in Georgia.
Yeah.
This lady, D.A. Willis, she's not playing any games. And I think that's the one he's actually got to really be worried about because I think that it's possible. Well, because the thing of it is like a lot of the co-conspirators are talking now. And in a conspiracy, once you got someone talking, and you really just need a really good one. His last lawyer is flipping. She just played.
Oh wow!
It's falling down. It's falling down fast. So I don't really know what he's gonna do, but he's actually doing pretty well in comparison to what the other candidates are doing. That's what's kind of fascinating. It's just that and Biden's not doing too well in the polls, despite the fact that these cases that are against Trump are, especially the one in Georgia, are quite viable. I think he's got a right to be nervous, and then then he's got this one going on in New York, which that's also has legs. I mean, I don't know. It's a fascinating thing. These cases are viable, but he's holding strong as far as like the to be the Republican nominee.
There's a lot packed in there because we touched on that last week, and in particular to Jenna Ellis. That's the latest, and she, to me, I thought she was a rising star. I'm not sure what the whole plea deal that she did, because I know Clint cleared it up, and I'm sure you know this. Her taking a plea deal, and it was a felony charge, and I thought it would impact her license, but Clint was like, no, you can have a felony charge and still be a lawyer, which was shocking, but I mean, I guess it is what it is.
Well, for most felonies, no. Like with Trump's old lawyer, Cohn. What's his name? Last name Cohn. And he had to play to. He was the one that did the bribery with Stormy Daniels and all that stuff.
Oh, right.
And so then when he was convicted, he was disbarred.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, he was. Yeah. So he
That
wasn't
has
just
something to
prison.
do with money too.
Correct. Yeah. So. Yeah, I think she probably will still face some disciplinary action. I don't think that's really just going to be the end of it. But I think her thing is this is going down fast. It's likely that somebody's going to go to prison for this, and I'm not going to prison for him. Yeah. Wow. Oh, yeah.
And and really what I'm thinking about is just having this discussion about his lawyers. They still would need, Trump is still in a good position, and the best position is not to even be named in this lawsuit. That's the best position. But I think even now, they're going to have some, I'm just going to use the term irrefutable evidence, to get even Mark Meadows, that was his main lawyer that just took, that just made a deal.
Right.
And from my understanding is, he would have to provide such rock hard evidence that won't incriminate him, because he's already taken a deal and he's going to work with them. But now I'm throwing this part in. Even if he presents something, it can't counter what he previously said, because then that re-incriminates him. Because Trump has a right to believe that it was stolen. The same right that Hillary Clinton had when she said that it was an illegitimate election, he was an illegitimate president. The same right that Stacey Abrams had when she said that when she lost.
It's a little different, though.
Well, his point was, I granted, it is different.
It's a little different. I mean, if I could just say real quick, because of the steps he took. I mean, it's okay to challenge the validity of an election, but he was basically trying to, well, at least the evidence so far is showing that he tried to lean on certain people, to get them to do certain things so the election would go his way. And so I think it's not going to really be in a good situation, because you have people who are part of the conspiracy, quote unquote, they're going to be talking. And now it's more than one. And these are his lawyers.
Right.
I mean, so you would think that the lawyers, because there were so many lawsuits filed, like when the election, I guess, was wrapped up, he filed several lawsuits, I think, across the country. So, his lawyers, I imagine, were intricately involved with the how-to and what steps to take, because Trump wouldn't know. And I think that's one of the main, he would have to facilitate this all through his advisors, which is more likely his lawyers. And so I think it was probably pretty smart for them to plead, because, I just don't think, I don't know how you can refute it. They're probably not going to take a chance. And so, they're going to talk. And now that they're going to talk, I don't know what his lawyers are going to come up with to refute. I mean, the only thing you can do when you have a witness that's going to testify against you is you have to go after their credibility, which I think that's what they're going to probably do. But how? And how can you do it effectively, I think, is the worry.
Well, all good points. The only thing I'll say to that is, if anyone can do it, it'd be Trump. and here's why I don't want to get too far ahead, but because they demonize the media, and there's no secret that the mainstream media hates Trump, so it's going to, always put his business out there, cover for Biden. Even with that disadvantage for Trump, he still leads, and he still actually leads Joe Biden.
Yeah.
And so people like to say, well, wait to the primary. Well, the poll is if the elections were held today, that is the primary. And in that poll, and there's one News Nation, but there was one with CNN, there was one with, I forget the other.
Did Gallup do one?
I don't know if Gallup did one or not, where Trump is leading, a 3-point lead. And so it goes to show that the gag order, I think, is also hurting Trump, not because the people need to hear from Trump. No one can say they don't know who Trump is. He couldn't be leading in the polls if they didn't know who he was. So him not showing up at these Republican debates does nothing to hurt him. They tried. Chris Christie tries to bring that out there. People need to hear from him. No, we pretty much know what Trump is going to do. The same thing he did last time he was in office. I think he was an effective president on the economy, and I think he did well for the average American who didn't have a political agenda. Now, again, so let me get the number out, and I'm not even looking online to see if anyone's text the question in. 813-444-9588. So, sticking with Trump and the court cases, Don Jr. and Eric, was it Eric?
Eric.
Yeah. They were both in court, and what was comical to me was maybe it's the first time I really listened. Really listened to Don Jr. speak. I thought I've heard him speak. He actually sounds a lot like his dad. Word choice, and he just like, whoa, that sounded awful Trump-like. But his thing was, this whole thing about the finances and them overvaluing the Trump brand and blah, blah, blah.
Oh, yeah. Well, that's the one in New York.
Right, yeah. The one in New York. Only what the Democrats want you to know about that is what's portrayed, because the Trump brand, from understanding, is more than what they're saying that he even asked for. So the Trump brand is actually more in certain financial or investment circles. Mm-hmm. So the fact that they're saying that he overvalued his property so he could receive, favorable loans, right, and blah, 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 and they were all paid back. So at the end of the day and what's the point?
It's lying.
It's lying about...
It's lying. Well, because we're right, because his brand, as long as you can remember, is all about wealth and power, mm-hmm, and all of this, and so I think
he's wealthy and he's powerful.
But he wasn't. But he wasn't as wealthy as we thought. Wealthy, but he's not as wealthy as we thought. And then I guess the basic thing is, like, if you're wealthy, then why are you inflating your assets? You know what I mean? And so if this is the brand, because the brand attracts people. This is one of the things. Mm-hmm. That's why people were going to that, remember the university he had?
Trump University.
And then
right.
He was selling, what was he selling? Steaks. He was selling ties. He was selling everything. Yeah. I think cologne. It was all of this stuff, and it was all based on, like, wealth and success. And so then you have this guy that's inflating his assets. Well, it's like, well, why? Why are you doing that? Why are you doing it, bro? So, that's something that, if nothing else, I mean, they just kind of want to expose him, but again, it doesn't seem to be hurting them in the polls.
It does not seem
People
to be hurting him.
Don't care. His base doesn't really care about it. I think they like him for a variety of reasons, but
honesty is not one of them.
I guess you could say that. I guess you could. But then there's a principle about it, and the principle is. If you want to really get deep into it, it still kind of goes back to Obama, Trump. They're the total opposites of each other.
Right.
Biden is really just like an extension of the Obama doctrine, if you will, you know. And so Obama's not there, and he's not a part of it, but that still kind of, I would say that they still kind of run the Democratic Party. What means you want my honest personal opinion, and Trump is anti that, anti all of this stuff. So I think people are pretty much moving on the premise of, well, I just don't want to go down this liberal rabbit hole,
True.
And so they cling to Trump because he's like the antithesis of that,
Right. And I totally agree. And the last thing I'll say about the whole branding thing and the overvaluing of his property, I think most millionaires, billionaires, especially people in property, have done the same thing. But it's because it's President Trump, and it's something that we need to show yet another flaw in him, because that's the essence of living somewhere. And I'm just going to bring it down on a very, very basic level. When I first moved down to the Tampa Bay area, and I started hearing about New Tampa, New Tampa was the place to be. And when people didn't live in New Tampa, but they said they lived in New Tampa, you're like, oh, man, they got some money. It's being associated with did New Tampa overvalue? Because New Tampa is not all that great. It's to live near someone. I don't think it has to be necessarily deception.
But that deception attracts people, and those people who come bring money.
Right.
So it's not theft, but it's a little bit of, I guess, not to get all legal on you, but it's a little bit of misrepresentation, because that misrepresentation can affect, what people would do. Like, for example, New Tampa. If you wanted to, say, quote unquote, live in a nice area, and you know that that's a nice area, and you might think, oh, I may have to spend a little more money to live in a nice area, but I'm willing to do it if I have the means and it looks nice. So then you go up there and you buy a house in that area thinking, oh, this is good because once I get the house, it's going to appreciate and value more. You're making all of these decisions.
All right. Okay, we're hearing the music.
Yeah.
We're going to come back with that, but when we come back, we're going to be talking about the Trump effect on the presidential field. See you after the break.
of jazz. You're listening to In Touch Radio.
Who doesn't love being number one? When your team's dominating the standings, or your favorite band rocks the charts at number one, it feels good, right? Kind of like how it feels when you have auto insurance with State Farm. Because making you feel like number one is an honor your local State Farm agent takes seriously. Through the good times and not so good, your State Farm agent's proud to be here to help life go right.
Call Herman White at 961-6661. That's 961-6661.
We're back. We're going to jump into the presidential field now and try to figure out what's going on. And we just talked about all of Trump's legal problems, but he is still the man to beat. If you saw, I'm glad I didn't pay for the fight, but the fight between the MMA, the Francis and the Gypsy Tyson Fury, that's kind of what Trump is. That's a good, and I just thought of this, that's a good illustration because all the hype was on, Tyson Fury, he's just going to walk through this, and then he gets knocked down. Looks bad. Actually, the guy does really well. Now, you can say this is Trump 2020 coming into because it should have been a cakewalk for Hillary. And then this unknown comes in and dominates the fight. That's what Francis did. But Trump still being the man, and to go back to that analogy, Tyson won. They gave him the decision. And they gave him the decision based on the fact, I agree with it, because it's happened in the past. If you're fighting a champion, you have to take the belt. You have to beat the champion. So you knocked him down, but he got up. You didn't dominate. He was, Francis was more or less having defense, doing, what do you call it? I forget the boxing. I should have even brought it up. But anyway, he was more or less on the defensive, blocking and then trying to counter. That's what it is. He was just trying to counter. But he didn't dominate the fight to the point that, okay, in boxing, judging views, that Tyson Fury would lose the fight. And so I think that's what we have with Trump. And so now talking about the presidential field, we have DeSantis out there, Nikki Haley, and I don't think I'm saying this in any order of polling because Nikki Haley might edge out DeSantis.
You led with who you liked.
Right. Trump, Nikki Haley, DeSantis, Vivek Ramaswamy, or whatever his name is, and then Tim Scott. I believe. Yeah. And Chris Christie. Yeah. And so Mike Pence.
And some others.
Yeah. Mike Pence has dropped out. My understanding, and I also believe this, and I always like to disclaim when I say I believe this, it's not my thoughts, so I don't like taking credit for what other people have said. But Mike Pence was trying to avoid the embarrassment because he didn't meet the 4% national polling. And to be a former president,
I thought he'd have did a little better, actually. I really, really did. But but I think you know why? Because after everything went down when Trump lost, Trump came at Pence, came at him extremely hard. Yeah. And see, Trump's base, one thing about him, they're hanging with him through indictments, everything. It doesn't matter. They are hanging with him. That's what you call a ride or die chick.
Yeah. That's the type of female, I don't care what they say about you, baby, I'm going to stick with you.
This is unprecedented. It used to be one scandal, you're done forever. This guy's got 3 or 5 scandals, and he's just rolling along. This is really, I don't think we've ever seen anything like this before.
But there is, to me, there's some credence in that to what people actually see. And what I mean by that is most people think that these charges, these court cases are politically motivated. If it were anyone else, if Trump dropped out and said, hey, look, I lost.
You know what, though? But it may be both. I think that, he's committed crimes. And, we're, of course, going to decide that. But then at the same time, they're trying to stop this man from becoming president. Mm-hmm. I think primarily because of everything that happened, particularly January 6th.
But that's after the fact.
Yeah. But
Trump didn't hang his hat on January 6th. That was after the fact. Trump was hanging his hat on the work that he had done, the economy he had built, the economy that he had going along. He had to deal with COVID. In the midst of all that, they impeached him twice. They impeached him at the beginning of a COVID pandemic. Democrats had no care for what the American people would experience. No one could forecast the toll that COVID would take. But as COVID was engulfing, yep.
We got a call.
All right, our first caller. In Touch News Radio, straight up the middle. Caller, who do we have?
Good morning, Professor. This is Carl, the trucker calling in.
Hey, Carl.
Good morning. Good show, man.
You called in when I was pumping up Trump, so I know you were tapping the brakes. The people behind you probably hated you hitting the brakes. You're swerving, trying to get the
He was right on
call
time.
in.
He was right on time.
Well, I mean, because the reason his supporters are so diehard because he gives them the illusion that he's for them. I mean, that illusion the same way with David Koresh, and you got Jim Jones, whatever. He has that charisma the same way. He has that same charisma and these people are just latched on to him. But you look at, he gave them the illusion that, how the Mexican was coming over here raping and pillaging and we're gonna clean them up and we're gonna build this wall so they can't come back in here no more. And so he gave them that illusion of building a wall.
Okay.
So I mean,
Right.
when you got a stick oil field made,
Okay. I hear that. I was just surprised. You put him with David Koresh and Jim Jones, and man,
Right.
Okay.
Right. So they got David Clay, and these guys, they had these people giving them their whole welfare checks coming in.
I think he's making a good
income.
point. Like, it's just the illusion that he's with them.
You get somebody to,
Mm-hmm. Okay. So then tell me, why do you think it's only the base that has him 3 points over Biden? And this is not against the Republican field. This is if the election were held today. This is the second week that I've seen a poll that has Trump ahead, and you still think it's just the base?
No, it's not the base because Biden, President, he do have his age. His age is a factor because I think is just me doing some critical thinking here where a lot of people just don't want a female becoming president. They have to have. So by Columbia being president, right? So that I think there is an issue even with some of your Democratic voters.
Okay, and I'm glad you brought that up, Carl. I'm so glad because let me hear your thoughts on. I'm just going to throw this out. I saw a TikTok, and I hate to do this, but I'm going to do it because I think it needs to be brought out. I saw a TikTok, and this guy was really railing against Sexy Red. You know who Sexy Red is, right? And just some of the lyrics that she puts out. And there was a black woman last week doing the same thing. And I bring that out because when Barack Obama was elected president, there was a big to-do. I felt proud. I voted for President Obama. People don't believe that as a Republican. Yeah. Not the second time. The first time, man, I was up there teary-eyed like everybody else. I don't care that he was on the other side of me, and I'm like, we got this guy.
At least you did it one time.
And, right?
I couldn't accept if you didn't do it both.
Right. And check the record. As a Republican, he got mine. Now, but here's the thing, though. And I think President Obama did a really good job of, I'm going to say inspiring, not just black youth. I mean, black men, but the black youth. I say that in the context of Sexy Red because we have a black African-American vice president.
Mm-hmm.
You would think there would be more of a call to not degrade the image of black women. The fact that we have a black VP, well, why do you think that's the case? Because I may not have been clear in the question because the VP's rating is the lowest of any in many years. She has a 37% approval rating, 54% disapproval.
When I think about her, I think this. It's one of these situations where, say that you have a college football player, a basketball player, and they're a star in college.
Mm-hmm.
And when they get to the professional, it just doesn't pan out for whatever reason. Some people, when they get to the next level, it may not for various reasons. It just doesn't take very well. You know what I mean? Because when you're at that level, it's totally different. It's a whole nother ball game that most people don't really know what it's like until you actually get in it.
Point taken.
And
now I want to get Carl's take so we can let him go.
Yeah.
Carl, what do you think? Since you said that you didn't think people may not want to vote or may not want a black, and I think you were saying a black female president. Why is her approval rating so low? That can't just be Trump's base. That's
I just wrap my mind around the fact that we still have some real racist chants still which is in politics.
Mm-hmm.
So you're not going to give her that momentum in order for her to run for president, because as now, Democrats don't really have anyone that's really credible to really fill the seat.
Right.
Behind the president now, so she's and you the VP are the next one in line.
Right.
So unless we go with unless you go with the speaker,
Jeffries, Hakeem Jeffries.
Hakeem Jeffries, right? But I don't think they're ready for a black, a female. Look what they did to Hillary as a female, as a white female.
Mm.
So a black female is not gonna, she's not gonna get a chance.
Well, we all are entitled to our opinion. I don't necessarily agree. I think there's a more nuanced position, because on its face, that would say that we're only talking about white people that may be voting and has a bad opinion of Kamala Harris. That to me, that negates what. Sorry, you're saying all of the Divine Nine, because she is and I don't know what's her word. Anyway, she is.
I mean, well, you got even some females that don't want to see another female as president.
Right. Okay.
You got some. They just. I guess the thinking process of. The thought process. I don't know. That's a tricky question there.
Well, again, Carl, we appreciate the call. I don't know if I'm going to be on again next week, but thank you for the call. Well, when I do call in and I listen to the show, I know you're a big part of it. So thanks again, Carl.
Anytime. You're doing a great job, Professor. I love to hear you and the good attorney whenever you can find him.
Right. All right. We'll talk with you later. Now, there was something else about Kamala Harris, because she did an interview last week, a week before last, and they were trying to. There were some questions as to why now, because she doesn't like to do interviews, and I think she doesn't like to do interviews because her polling numbers are so low. But there's some reasons why. When we talk about the border, President Biden put her in charge of the border. But last year before last, it's been a while.
Which I think was a setup. The border.
Some people.
To be fair, the border is it's a bad. It's just a real bad setup because it's a mess. And then when she's in there, she's expected to work wonders. And if she's going to work wonders, she's going to need help. She can get the help. So,
but she's only been to the border once, from my understanding. The other part is, it may have been a setup, but President Trump's last year, these are Border Patrol, CBP numbers. President Trump's last full year in office, the border crossings for the year was 432,000, because he had that stay in Mexico policy. Biden comes in, knocks that out. Oh, we're going to take over Trump. The fence is racist. There are now 10 million since Biden has been in office. The number was 8, but I think that people were throwing around 8 million, but the number's closer to 10 million illegal crossings. That means and if you average it out, that doesn't mean 3 million came across a year, because we're into his third year. Where's the setup? I mean, there has to be a lack of someone not doing something. If you don't want to blame the VP, then there's somebody that has to be blamed. Is it Mayorkas? But someone has to take responsibility for the massive numbers that we have in this country now.
But I would say it's a little bit of a setup because what is she supposed to do? Like, she's supposed to secure the border, but then if you secure it too tight, that actually can have a negative effect. You know what I mean?
What would be the negative effect of reducing the number?
Well, because there's a lot of people in this country, particularly in like certain cities, that they want a very, very liberal immigration policy. And so if you were tightening up the border, that's opposite of that. People are going to see that, and a lot of the left's base are under that premise. They want open. Well, I'm not going to say open borders, but they want a very liberal border policy. And when you do things like that, I think that's one of the things that Obama did, is that he kind of tapped into really all the margin. Yeah, you said he inspired just black youth, but no, it was like really all people who were marginalized. He tapped into really all of them, and that's what kind of brought him up. And so the border is just tricky because it's like, okay, you need it secured, but if you secure it too bad, then that could hurt us. So it's just like almost like a darn if you do, darn if you don't. You know what I mean?
And here's an instance fact about that. And I know a lot of people don't know because it's not what the mainstream would push. President Obama, it's the term, exported the most immigrants. He had a very effective policy. Now, Trump brought that number down.
Obama wasn't a liberal. He was actually centrist, I would say. So
Trump. I mean, Obama.
And then it was a different time then. You know what I mean? Because a lot of the less policies that were moving forward, they weren't as prominent as they were then as they are now. So Obama during that time period was a different mindset, different sentiment. He could do certain things. You're right. He deported, I think, the majority of the people.
Right. He was effective. He deported
now him doing that now. I don't know if he would have been as popular if he was doing that sort of thing now. You know what I mean?
But here's the thing.
We're talking about 2008.
When asked about the border policy, asked about the effectiveness of the Biden-Harris administration on the border policy, she blamed Congress not acting. But the issue is, if we can see
Congress deals with that,
right? But if we can see that we've always had a Congress, we can see that President Trump was effective on the border, having 432,000 people. Now that number went down. It wasn't like that Trump's entire presidency, because he had to work a deal out with the Mexican president to put some measures in place. But if you can see that President Obama deported, that was the term I was looking for, deported the most immigrants under any president. Obama did that. And then you have Trump, who had to deal with some issues. Again, remember, we had COVID, and then even in his last year, he still, for the total year, and you can check the stats, 437,000 border crossing. If you have 3 million a year, and that's averaging, there is a huge failure. Congress is still there. They didn't pass a law. They didn't do anything that took away the powers. It's a lack of will to enforce it. Now we have, and I think we're going to our last segment. Yeah, going to our last segment. Now we have an issue with Hamas, way over another country in the Middle East. Now we got a situation, and that's
going to be a problem.
Yeah, I heard that with all of the migration issues, that we have hundreds of terrorists that have come across the border that we can't find. You already had a bad immigration policy for your first 3 years. Now there's a war that's already broken out between Israel and Hamas. It's only going to exacerbate the migration. You can't identify people because you don't have an effective border policy. That's going to come back boomerang. But on this last segment, I don't understand. I'm going to be the first. I don't understand what the issue is. It's not that I don't understand what the issue is between Hamas and Israel.
Mm-hmm.
That's different from Palestinians and Israelites.
Mm-hmm.
Hamas and Israel, those two factors going at each other. What bothers me is the ease and the convenience at which people will protest for anything that they can say. You know, the American government is bad too. Anytime you can throw the American government as part of the problem, you get these college students at these elite colleges protesting. So what do you think comes out of this, and how do you think it's going to affect President Biden as we come up to this presidential election?
Well, and I just want to be clear. You're saying what's coming out of what these college students are doing?
I'm sorry, out of the whole Hamas-Israel conflict/war, how does that affect President Biden? Because we know what it's doing on the college campuses, so this is breeding some undercurrent there. Now they're having to put out all this anti-Semitism policies on these campuses. That's going to come back. That's a local thing. But how do you think it affects him in the national polls?
Yeah, because see, the issue is, you know, I'm noticing something. Maybe you noticed it too. Is that there's a growing sentiment about, well, what about the Palestinian people? They lost their land. Certain things happened that were bad to them. Don't they have a right to be upset? You know, and you have this new sentiment. You have this new sentiment coming around where it's like, well, what about them? You know, why should all the allegiance and all the positive press, I guess, go to Israel when, you know, some may argue, you know, they've done some things themselves, you know? And we never really heard this before, but now this sentiment's kind of growing. And this is kind of what I was alluding to, like, we're just in a different time. And these young people are paying attention. A lot of people are just paying attention. They're looking at things different. And I think that it's it kind of comes down to this. I know people aren't using woke anymore, but there's this growing sentiment of, you know, all people from a human rights standpoint should be looked at fairly. And I think a lot of the people, you know, who are proponents of Palestine, they see things as being unfair.
Okay.
You know.
Well, that's going to be the end of that. But before we leave, I want you to share a little bit about on the outtake here before we have the next show coming up.
Oh, yeah. The law firm is Adams Law and Consulting, PLLC. That's Adams, ATOMS. Check me out on Instagram, Facebook, and the website, lawandsupport.com, or call 727-506-2308.
Okay, but that does it there. So, Clint, I hope we did you proud. I tried to drag Biden a little more, but Julius wasn't having it. Carl wasn't having it. So, but we're coming up, and please stay around for the next show, which is Stay Woke.